G'day and welcome. Whoop. Hang on, my camera's knackered. Is that better? Can you see? G'day and welcome, and of course, breaking the rain. The rain's come thumping down and it's running through the garage, which is kind of bad. I've got to dig a strip drain. I've been painting my daughter's room, and it started off, it was supposed to be just the walls, and ended up being just everything, windows, the whole lot, and repairs, and having trouble with curtains and all this stuff. Pain in the neck. But we finished the Sigma, and now we're back on the bikes. So I want to familiarise myself with the bikes. There's two lovely Honda 4s here, a CB350F and a CB750K. One of the last ones, the CB750K8. And we'll have a quick look and talk about some of the things we've got to do and some of the parts we've got to get. This one's mainly about the 350 because the 750's rear hoop is still way being chromed and I can't do anything really with the bike until I get it back. Time for a bedroom makeover. She doesn't like the pink anymore. So, painting rooms sucks. I don't like doing it much, but anyway. We're going to go for more of that sort of colour. It looks crap on camera. But yeah, I'll show you what it looks like my study. So I'm going to do the ceiling, got to do it around the windows. Rose itself with a sugar soap. Get rid of all those dirty marks where a bed used to feed on a bed. And lots of filling. I took off that top window rail because it was loose and the pelmet was all rolling around. The timber behind there's nice and solid, so just got to fill in all those holes. And clean the fan. We're good. Right, little 350 engine. It is quite clean actually. I am going to get it hydroblasted though, just to get rid of all that muck. It's too difficult to clean it, and it always comes back a little bit better. You can see inside it's a sort of a champagne colour, which is normal. It's just aluminium with hot oil. And it's just sitting together with a couple of bolts, and it all sort of comes apart. So I'll take this down and get it hydroblasted. And we might just, I've got enough bits to sort of stick the gearbox back together, but that's about it at the moment. I've got to order some parts. Right, crankshaft. Now, this was never ever supposed to be a full rebuild. When I started finding elastic and all that sort of stuff and then pulling this thing apart, the two things I wanted to change were the primary chain. This doesn't have a tension oil on this bike, unlike the 750. It has a couple of guides to run down it. And given that the chain tensioner was knackered, I thought it would be a good idea to change that too. Now, when I pulled the cases apart, I pulled the bearings out and there's some wear. And I looked at them and I thought, you know what? I tried to talk myself into liking them. I looked at them and I thought, oh yeah, they're going to be fine. But when I felt them, I didn't like what I felt. There's tiny little pits in them, which is fatigue. And they just need to be replaced. They look good until you get around this area here. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but we can't put those back in. I can't rebore the cylinders, new pistons, new rings, new chains, gone over the gearbox, everything's great, and then we're using these. I can't do it. Now, with the 750, you get black shells. Most builders will just put black shells in them. Now, I've spoken to 3 reputable single overhead cam 4 builders, and they've all said the same thing. They also said that you don't need to reuse, you don't need to change your rod bolts. Now on our 750 we changed those for the F-type ones because they're stronger. There was a lot of conjecture getting around that the original ones are stretched to yield and you can use them once and then they're toast. That is the case for twin cam bikes, not the singles. That's what I've been told by 3 reputable guys, so we're going to reuse these ones. Now the journals in this feel fine, but they need to be mic'd up so I know what bearings to get. Now, unfortunate part about these is they don't make the black bearings for the 350 engine. They don't make them anymore. They make the brown, which will allow a little bit more clearance. But I need to mark them to find out exactly where they are for now and take it from there. Which doesn't make me that happy because it's not as easy doing this as it would be in doing the larger bike. Now this isn't half the pain in the neck the 750 is, in that the engine's very easy to get out of this bike. And there's nothing particularly difficult about pulling it apart, but they're so intricate, these things. A couple of things to note. These seals all have a sort of a guide lip on them, so they have to be in situ before the cases are sort of put together, because then you can't get them in. So we'll just pop some rods off, have a bit of a look. Hopefully the journals here are good. They certainly feel okay, but that doesn't really mean anything. The rods are matched. There, that bearing looks absolutely sweet. It's got wear on it. Yeah, that's got wear on it. That's no good. And by putting it together, you can see the two on one side. So I've marked these 1, 2, 3, 4. I marked that up, but they've all got F on the front, so I know exactly the position they go with those at the front. So yeah, I'm just going to have to take this off, take it to work, mark it up, and order the bearings. So anyway, we got all those out, we've got them in order, we know exactly how they fit, we've sort of taken notes and all that sort of other stuff, so I'm pretty relaxed about that. I'll take this off. And of course, with all our old parts, we never throw them out until we've got new ones to compare them to. So, you know, I'm not going to risk that because the tension didn't work at all. So here's our CB350K. The front wheel I've got to take off again because the bearing's a little bit stiff. I don't think I pressed it in properly, or I've done something wrong. But I went ahead and did it just to get the bike on the centre stand because it was on the ground before. I put the frame in the bare, I put the engine in the bare frame. This bike, if I had my time again, I wouldn't have picked this bike, this particular bike, because there was absolutely everything wrong with it. So it's had new spokes, new rims, even the fork stanchions are brand new, and every bearing in the engine and gearbox and pistons, you name it. It's had a lot of work done to it. It was a mess inside. It was only showing 18,000 miles, I think. 18,000. So yeah, it had a hard life, and it wasn't ridden since way back in, I think, in 1988. In April 1988 was the last time it had rego paint on it, so who knows when it was last run. Clever Dick, I've lost one of these. I'm hoping it's on the ground from this side. The brakes down there, or the hub is down there, sorry, and the brakes, I've got to sort of clean that up and get some new brake linings for it, clean that up, and I've got the spokes, and as I said, the rims away. So this bike, once it's got that rear rim on, I'll revisit the front, and then we can wheel it around. I've got to get a brake caliper for the front of it, and a master, because the master is completely seized and full of white powder. It won't unseize, had it soaking for about 2 months, 6 weeks, something like that, I don't know. Can't get it off. So this is a beautiful bike. I've gone for the original grips. I've gone for the low bars it had originally, the raked back high-rise bars and all this sort of stuff. The seat's knackered, and the frame for the seat's knackered too, so I'll just get a repro frame or a repro seat, and of course an exhaust. So there's still a bit of money to spend on this, and of course once I get that rim back, I'll lace it, send it down to Scotty's, get it trued, and get a new rear tyre put on. The other thing with this model is parts a lot dearer or harder to get for them. Fuel tanks are impossible in this country. I've seen one for sale, and it was completely rusted out inside. They're just very, very rare. The only ones that came to Australia were the 77s, the K7, which had the same tank, and it was only for that year. Most people bought the F model back then. This tank is from Colwell Motors, and Scott painted this, I think, 10 years ago. This was Gary's tank, and he kindly donated it, which I was absolutely chuffed with. So I'm leaving the paint scheme on it, and I'll paint the side covers, which I haven't got at the moment. I think one of them is there, and it's all broken at the top, so I'll get a new pair of side covers, and I'll use the 77 script, which is more sort of cursive script, if you know what I mean, for the side covers on that bike. Check out that little cam off the 350. So this one's not far off finished, but needs some money, and then we're done with it. The 354, on the other hand, this one's a bit close to my heart because I've had one of these. I've had a 350 twin and a 4. This was a beautiful original Flake Matador red bike that a bloke from Melbourne called Russ used to own, and he sent me a photo of it. This bike was converted to Cafe Racer and it looked pretty good. And I would have probably left it like that, but it came with all its original kit. So it had gaiters on the front, I put the original fork things on, and I actually got a frame cut for it, and re-added the seat lock, re-added these tabs on the back for the rear hoop, what do you call it, the grab handle or whatever you call it. Seat brackets, they were all cut off. I added all that stuff back on because I just thought it was a pity, being such a nice original bike, to modify. It's even got a toolkit that came in the box with it. So I repainted the tank. Had a bit of trouble with that because I didn't do it very well. The clear coat I used, can't get that on. The clear coat I used played up, and I just didn't do a very good job. But at the end of the day, it does look presentable. The tank's very clean inside. Not as good as Gary's. That thing's like brand new. This is almost like brand new. So we, oh, hang on a sec. So we did some treatment on the inside. It's pretty damn good. Nothing much to worry about there. Again, taking the clip-ons off, redid the speedo and tacho. So it's got to be wired, it's got to have the rear indicators put on, and of course the engine put back together. But this is a beautiful bike. I've done it, I haven't done it flake matador red, I've done it in the silver, which is the colour I had when I was young, and I really like that colour. It's a sort of a timeless, fresh looking colour for this style of bike. Now the other thing is, 350 and 404s have a real cafe racer look about them anyhow, just in the tank styling and that sort of stuff, and I prefer it to look standard just because I think it's a little bit more desirable looking like that. Lots of people do cafe racers, particularly you know, when you get an old bike and you can't get the parts for them anymore. It's much easier to convert them to that, but as I said, given that I had all the parts for this, I just decided to leave it or convert it back to stock. We've got to put the tank badges back on, just got to touch those up, and the motor. So we've hydroblasted the case. It looks to be painted silver, and it's not. It's beautiful. So they'll get a light, and you can just see how clean it is. Gorgeous. And there's no paint on that whatsoever. And again, you know, I wouldn't have bothered doing this, but we had a broken chain tensioner that had been drilled in a bad position, and the only way around that's to split the cases. Splitting cases, you're going to be looking at bearings and all sorts of stuff, which we'll have a look at in a moment. Sort of laid out some bits and pieces that are pertinent to putting the bottom end back together. We've got a sprag, a one-way clutch if you like, similar to what you find in automatic transmission. That's what the final drive hooks up to from the crank. Oil pump, and again we got this all this blue sealant, elastic type stuff around it. I'm going to have to pull that apart. I don't trust anything that was done on this. Gear shift apparatus, so your shift forks, and of course they're all in order there, so I don't even need to think about that when I put it on. Associated tents and all that sort of business there, that's a bit of the alternator. Seals I've kept until I get replacements, so I know exactly what I'm doing. Idle gear, just bits and pieces there, so clutch pack and all these bits and pieces. So I've got all these in order. They're not clean yet, but they're not dirty either, if you know what I mean. The oil that came out of this thing was lovely. Of course, we have plated bits and pieces, and this is a very, very small portion of them. We've got loads and loads of stuff, even the sort of bezel for the petcock that holds the control in, and this guy, and that's a tensioner. And these, I'm going to say, I think are a poor design. It would have been far easier having a tensioner sort of like the 750, which came in through the back of the cylinder block. That way, at worst, if you need to replace bits and pieces, you can just take that off and leave the engine in there. This sort of thing, these are known to fail, and it's a matter of splitting cases to get them out. And you can see here, it's pretty well grooved up. Can we get an angle? Just there. This is easy to fix with the weld. I can weld that up and file it and finish off, make it look good because it's steel. This is cast. I can't do that with cast. And if you ever did attempt it, getting it red hot with a brazing it or whatever, you run the risk of material coming out because the chain just thrashes against that. It doesn't look like it'll break. It looks damaged, but it doesn't look like it'll break. But it might have weakened it to the point where we could get a stress fracture, and we just don't want that. We can't do anything with that. So it's just another thing, and these are dear. By the time you get it sort of posted out here to Oz, you're going to be looking at about $200. So, you know, they don't come cheap. That's one of the first things we put in, too. It sort of slings underneath the crankshaft. So, yeah, just got to order some parts, basically. Main and big end bearings, timing chain, primary chain, tensioner, and we'll get the 2 tensioner bits, which I've got somewhere around here. They looked, oh, that one's not too bad. It's dirty, but it's not too bad. I might be able to reuse that. One of them looked a bit worn. It must be the other one. The other thing, again, you know, this is more and more like the XC and the Sigma, where we've had people's error that have caused issue. There's the camshaft. Very small, quite cute. I don't think of camshafts as cute, but this is certainly going to qualify for that. Probably even worth boring a hole down the centre and using it as a drinking straw. But this was the one where that lobe there, well, that's not terribly good, has been messed with. Looks like it's chipped and they've filed it. So I got a new camshaft for the thing as well. Again, most of the parts that I've used on this bike have been ex-USA. And there she is there. And it's in remarkable condition. It's beautiful. So we've got, I think I mentioned before, a lot of sort of puffing coming back through number 2 carburetor. So I'm tipping that valve's bent, given the time it was 90 up. So we're going to have to look into that as well. So yeah, look, lots of work, and it's reasonably expensive. Some of it is error of previous owners. Some of it's just wear and tear. But I need to get it back together. I really do want to get this thing back together, and soon. So, you know, I'm not one of these people that can just get an old bike and tinker around with the carburetors and get it running again. I keep seeing videos like that, and pardon me, these two were never ever going to run. This one, as I said, had been messed about with. This one, on the other hand, had been neglected and had no compression. At a pinch, I could have taken the head off and done something with the head, but when I did take the head off this bike, it was just such a terrible mess inside. In terms of the oil, looked like black cottage cheese, and straight away I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to have to split the cases. It's come up absolutely beautifully. This engine runs silently, very, very nicely indeed. So I'm happy with how that's gone. I've just got to spend some money and get the right exhaust and all that sort of stuff for it. Love a 4x4 for both bikes. We can't do that. Economically, it's not viable. I've spent quite a lot of money on this bike. I was under the false pretense that the bikes are much easier than the cars, and they're not. These are much more intricate and complicated. The Speedo and TAC, I would like to redo the faces again. You can get all the 71s or 69 to 76 750s. You can get all the decals for the faces. 77, 78, again, you can't. We can take those off and get them remade, but it means sending them away to England, and I don't want to send them away. If they're lost in the post, I'm done. So just got to fix this up, make it look a bit better. I think we had a go at doing that last year or the year before. But that's about it for these. That's what we're up to. Very proud of these two bikes and looking forward to getting back into them. So there you have it. Only a very short video. I haven't posted one for a week and a half or 2 weeks or something like that. We're straight off the back of the Sigma. Of course, I want to get this engine done, back in the bike and running, and then we're on the XC. And the 750, that's just putting parts on. There's not a great deal of actual mechanical work involved with it now. I do, if anyone sees this and has, these have a different carburetor with an accelerator pump on, and there's restrictors in the transfer hoses between the carburetors, and I've lost them. So the accelerator pump, throttle pump, you call it? I don't know. The accelerator pump isn't as effective as it should be. It's got a new diaphragm and all that sort of stuff in it, but it needs those restrictors so you get a good squirt when you pump the throttle to start with before you start the engine. And so it can be difficult to start. So most of what I do will be on the 350 in the next couple of videos, and of course I'll do a separate 751, but it'll only be very, very brief. But look, that's what we're up to at the moment. I hope you've enjoyed that. It's sort of getting me sort of acquainted, if you like. It's been a long time since I've worked on the bikes, and of course we've had the Sigma and the XC in between that. So I think it might be time to get back into these now. So anyway, take good care of yourselves, enjoy your classics, and I'll see you around. Herbie! Herbie? I had to make that colour up. I couldn't find anything to match this. So I made that colour up out of some white and dropped some of that and messed around. Same sort of thing I do with the cars and bikes. Got a wardrobe. Even that pelmet frame up there was absolutely twisted and knackered, so I had to make another pelmet thing for it. And that will sort of staple on, and the pelmet sort of hangs down above where the hem for the curtain is, or where the thing for the curtain is. Rosie. So yeah, we're getting there. It's kind of more earth tone, I suppose.
It's because of the lighting.
It is. That lighting doesn't... Oh, we haven't cleaned the fan off yet. This is an old-fashioned sort of house where you've got the dark colour and the light and a frieze and you can't get anything. The only friezes you can get now are sort of really kind of babyish, very juvenile. And, oh my gosh, look at me. Yeah, so we've got cracks where the house has moved a little bit and filling up bits and pieces like that. But otherwise, it's all looking fairly good. I want to start on this. I was supposed to do it last year and I didn't get around to it.